Good, Municipal Coordinator. Thank you. Hello, everybody. We are live. It is Tuesday night, April 19th at 6 o'clock precisely. I'm in Council Chambers at 400 Centre Road, along with Councillor Abbott, CFO Rook, CAO De Jong, and Municipal Coordinator Duarte. On virtually with Council is Councillor Bain and Councillor Barmere. And I see we've got some gallery present. For the gallery members, we are going to go into closed in about 2 minutes. We're going to go through reasons why. So in terms of the gallery, your time with us is very short. We invite you back for 7 o'clock when we reconvene into the public meeting. So you can listen to me for 2 minutes and then say goodbye, or we can say goodbye now, but we'll welcome you back at 7 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order, and the proposed topics for discussion in the absence of the public are 2 reasons: enforcement matters, and B, legal advice and or litigation matters. And I'll just do the first part, that the meeting be closed to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the community charter, and where required, the council does consider that the matters could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. And those sections are section 91, 92, and that would be all. And CAO, are there any other items that should be added under the charter?
No.
All good. Welcome, Councillor Cunliffe, you are here. And all those in favor of the reason to go into close, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes.
Yes. Carried, thank you. And we'll say goodbye to the public, and we'll go into in camera in 30 seconds, Carl. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, April 19th. I am in chambers with Councillors Abbott and Cunliffe, and Councillors Bain and Barmere are virtual. Joining us today in chambers are CAO Peter De Jong and CFO Pamela Rook and Municipal Coordinator Carla Duarte. We have just come from our in-camera session and closed. I've got the following items to report out. And that is that in the closed session, staff updated council on various legal matters that are outstanding. And the second thing is that the staff recommendation on our Ocean View Road property will come forward in the first May council meeting, which brings us to adoption of the agenda. I'll put that forward. Are there seconder? Councillor Abbott, thank you. Are there any changes, amendments, deletions to the agenda? I have none. Councillors? CAO?
We can delete 7B.
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 Yep.
It's the same subject matter that staff are bringing up under 9.3. So we just discuss it once.
Do you want to take care of, do you want to delete yours and have it come later?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think staff.
So we'll just do the A cross the A.
Yeah, staff with verbal updates are.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Good. That's good with you, CAO?
Yep.
Good, thanks. Any other changes, amendments, deletions? All good, all in favor, please confirm yes. Opposed, no. Carried, thanks.
Yes.
Which brings us to the public participation, and I see we've got an active gallery tonight. We've got 10 minutes for public participation at 2 minutes per. If somebody would like to come forward, you don't have to put your camera on, but if you would unmute or show your hand so I can see a sequence. Mr. Shore, you could unmute, you have the floor, and then followed by Mr. Sredsky.
Okay, thanks everyone. I'm here to talk about runaway expenses again, when we still have the same number of people and houses and services and infrastructure and so on. Many residents have stood up on many occasions and asked council to stop the request for increased spending, and staff costs alone are up about $1 million in the last 8 years to close to $2 million for last year. And there's a push to hire even more people. Well, I'm here to say that we've just had enough, and many of the people in the gallery here feel the same way. Then there's the choice of projects. If you ran a vote for how many people want or would use the connector, you'd see how unpopular it is and you'd drop it. If you don't believe me, then go down and walk from the beach to the highway across to Kelvin Grove, and then walk back along the direct path that's already there. The walk up to the highway is about 5 times longer with a steep grade. And it was suggested that it's needed for mothers with children in their carts. I can guarantee you that they're not going to push their child back up the street, they'll drive if they can't go across the direct path that's already there. And then there's the beach washrooms. Promised for about a dozen years. About 5 years ago, a group of residents offered to pass the hat and do it ourselves with no cost to the village. We were turned down. Then a budget was drawn up for about $100,000, about twice what we were going to spend. And then an application for 60% funding turned that into a $300,000 budget. And when that funding was turned down, the increased $300,000 plan is what went into budget and was also part of a new grant application for us, based on us contributing the $300,000, not the $100,000. So instead of right-sizing the budget to the project swelled to fit the $900,000 grant money for stuff we don't need or want. The project went from cleaning up the washrooms to moving and replacing just about everything on the beach. Find a way to spend $900,000 when we need to spend about $100,000 or $200,000, including moving the memorial, by the way, which we can't do. All we needed was clean washrooms, and now we have a $900,000 project. So now you say we need a project manager to manage all these projects we don't really want or need. So my questions are, how much will this project manager cost? Is there engineering that he or she going to be relied upon, or just management? And if the latter, why aren't we managing this project with the staff we're already paying for?
Thank you very much, Mr. Shore. Mr. Sredsky?
Yes, good day. Want to comment on your response today to my questions 2 weeks ago. One question was related to spraying pesticide and how long you've knew about it. In your opinion, it was brand new news to you. As we inform you about it, I have a hard time to believe that you go to the meetings, metro meetings, you take expenses for going there, you sit on a committee that deals with the subject, and you have not known about it. That's hard to comprehend. How does that possible? Second, your response to my question into the projects that we have in the village is that now the plan is to hire a management company to handle the projects. We have at least 5 people on staff, highly paid, to do this management. Now we're hiring another coordinator, and we're hiring a management company to do the project to clean up the washrooms. This is pure madness. This is going way out of our proportions. In last 10 years exactly, our Lions Bay employment expenses went from 718,000 to 1.9 million plus this year. That's 170% increase. That's 270% proportion to what we had. We have no single more residents. We have streets that are falling apart completely. We've replaced the asphalt on the best chunk of road that we have, 100 meters, where we can't drive. Ocean View Road is a roller coaster, it's a tragic situation. Where is the management? It's time for an administrator to come to work and make the effort that we're paying him for.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sredsky.
Thank you.
We've got Mayor Broughton, if you could unmute.
There, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Mayor McLaughlin and Council, good evening. I, like so many residents, was just flabbergasted to read the village update on Thursday before an Easter weekend, when many people perhaps didn't have the opportunity to read the village update because they were away. Last year, I presented a PowerPoint presentation because of my concern about a 3.5% plus 10% increase in taxes. The year before, I wrote a letter, and Mayor McLaughlin did not bring it to council because he thought I was the only letter. Having 17 years that I've served on council, 2 as a council member, 15 as mayor, and I was outlining the concerns that I had been hearing expressed on the streets of Lions Bay. You can imagine my deep concern at seeing a 6.5% plus 10% increase. This is mathematically not sustainable for people in Lions Bay. When I sat on the Metro board and Metro was considering a 5% increase, I spoke to them about it. And they were seasoned politicians at that time. I know things change, and there are less seasoned people perhaps at that table, but they listened, they cut back, no one lost their job, and it was not a 5% increase. 6.5% should not be considered by this council. And to have third reading is irresponsible. I'll stop there. I ask that council vote against this 6.5% increase. I'd like to just point out what David Shore has said is that there are projects, and they're the same projects that I would agree with Mr. Shore on, that you've pointed out in the Village Update article, that should be reconsidered or simply not go ahead in the case of the connector.
Thank you very much, Mayor Broughton. I appreciate your comments. We've got room for another speaker. If you'd like to come forward, please unmute.
Ken Berry.
Mr. Berry, you're unmuted. You've got the floor.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you. And took me a moment to figure that hand raising, but my comments are going to echo many of the other residents that have just spoke. I've lived here with my wife and 2 children for the last 12 years, and I've had a chance to talk with different residents, and I've got a brief comment and then 3 questions, and I'd really like to hear from all the councillors if I could, and the mayor. I know that time's permitting, hopefully that works out, but
Mr. Berry, if I
so
can,
really my comment.
Mr. Berry, I don't want to set your expectations too high. You've got 2 minutes. So I rattle through it so we can hear as much as you've got to say.
All right, can you deduct those 15 seconds, Mayor?
You're good. You're good.
Thank
Don't
you.
worry about it.
All right. So Lions Bay administration costs have escalated much. We've heard from the other residents. In 2012, it was $868,000. In 2020, it's risen to 1.6 million. And now it's projected to increase to 1.95 million in 2022. A village of Anmore size that's not far from us right now has more residents and runs a budget of just $1.2 million for administration costs. So my questions to the council are, why are we hiring a coordinator for the village at this time? The duties of the coordinator look very similar to the role of the CAO. Secondly, with already high administration costs resulting in higher taxes, would it be a good time to have the CAO work in the Lions Bay office with his team and get these costs under control? Thirdly, given the large increase in administration costs, would council and mayor consider a motion to implement a temporary hiring freeze until we get these costs under control? Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. If anyone would like me to repeat those questions when it's time to answer, I'm more than happy to do so.
Thank you very much. You're recorded, Mr. Berry. We've got time for one more resident within the 10 minutes. If anybody would like to come forward, please do so now. Again, you don't have to turn your camera on. You can unmute if you hang on. I thought I saw one moving around. Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. I just want to make a couple comments to put things in perspective a little bit. I know that we can look at the number of participants that are on this call, and we look and we say 33, and we have a village and it's not that big, and we think, oh, well, not very many people are, excuse me, the train is going by. Perhaps this is not a good representation of how people feel in the village. But if you do the math and you extrapolate it, 33, even if you say 30%, 30 people on this call, represent about 2% of the population of Lions Bay. And if you were to take 2% of Vancouver at 600,000, which is a low estimate of Vancouver proper, that would mean that 12,000 people would have to show up at a meeting. So our 30 people that have come here tonight actually do represent, and I would like the councillors to really listen to that. We actually do represent a very large portion of the village. The other thing that I'd like to say just succinctly is that if there's, this imposing of 2 minutes is something that the council has done. It's not a rule. It's something that is imposed. And if you come back with statements of some of these questions that say, well, we need a qualified person to be the project manager, or the grant doesn't allow this, or the grant doesn't allow that, I would like you to start backing that up with actual letters from the granting bodies that say volunteers are not allowed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go one more. I see there's one more speaker with their hand up. Mr. Barry, if you could put yours down and let the other one go. Again, Tamara, if you can unmute, you're the speaker and you'll be the last one tonight. Thank you.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I hope you guys have had a great year. I think these seem to be the same comments coming up as came up last budgetary meeting. And I would just like to say that the Village of Lions Bay residents, for the most part, I don't think can support an increase, especially when there hasn't been a significant increase of service, of facilities. We haven't grown exponentially. The other, so my first concern is that you aren't really looking at the bottom line from a banker's point of view. You don't have income, times are tight. We're heading with inflation, as you know, interest rates are going up, as you know, there's a war going on in the world, we're going to contract a whole lot more. I would really ask that you be prudent fiscally and responsible to the community that you are bound to serve. The second point I would like to make is that we have a real problem with volunteerism in our community, and I think it really needs to start being addressed in terms of how do we infuse that community spirit back into the community. We have some really good-hearted folks stepping forward who are so brave to do so, but we really need more of a groundswell. Lions Bay used to be so much more vibrant than it is, and people who've lived here for 5+ years know that and feel that, and we really need to start feeling community appreciation. So I think as mayor and council, it is your mandate to lead the way. The third thing I would like to express concern about under budgetary items is I am really concerned at the depletion of assets, meaning that this council in particular seems to feel that it has the mandate to liquidate Lions Bay's natural assets of land, and leave us with nothing going forward. And I really question that. It's easy. Usually we sell our assets in times, when times are tight, when we really need to, you take the family heirlooms and you start selling them. Our land, our community land, municipal lands are our jewels. And I really wonder how this council got a mandate to liquidate assets in order to balloon headcount. And I would like to see and hear a conversation around that, so that if you do have a mandate to do that, fair enough, that's what you're doing. But you really, if you're going to sell off assets for future councils and future villagers, you need to make sure that you have that mandate.
Thank you very much,
so
Mrs.
those are my
Sledge.
points.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the gallery who is in attendance and for those who participated. Moving on, the next piece is, anything there, Councillor Abbott?
Are we going to discuss any of these points this evening under the budget section, or are we not going to respond? I mean, the budget section, that's a final reading. Are we going to have the opportunity to, are we going to rediscuss some of the points we had under the budget section previously, or what's the?
I would think the budget time, when it appears, section 11 would be the time to do that.
Okay.
I think in the rest, I mean, if I can recap, if there was sale of land, which has been ongoing since 2018, which was a previous council. We've sold one in our term, and let's call that as one. Let's talk about the compensation to our staff. The CFO has revealed that data to the public a month and a half ago. This is the first time it's come forward since then. One of the speakers addressed a note that I wrote to him and copied to council today. Didn't like the answer, but it is what it is because council has passed hiring the project manager. So I think I've captured the main theme, other than the tax increase of 6.5% is generally not well loved. The connector came up as a capital expenditure, and I think I've got most of them, Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, it just, you know,
I don't know what the discussion is because what are we going to talk about?
I don't know. Well, the budget item is definitely on the agenda later. It is a final reading. I just, you know, when you know, I feel when residents come and start asking questions, it should be more interactive than, yes, we heard, let's move on. That's just kind of how I feel.
I've got 15 minutes. I think we can do this. If the balance of council would like to park this for 15 minutes, I'm fine with that. Councillor Cunliffe, you good with that? Or would you prefer to move on?
I'm good for 15 minutes. If that's
Councillor Bain, are you fine with 15 minutes on addressing the gallery's issues?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Thank you. Councillor Berman, are you fine with addressing the residents' issues?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go through the couple. Councillor Abbott, I think you were taking notes. If I can go through, I think we're going to talk about the budget later on. So if we can park that for now. CFO, can you talk about the personnel costs? I think you've done this once before. It's been put out there.
I don't have it in front of me, but there is a misconception. There are no new hires in the budget. You're mentioning the coordinator, but that's a replacement position. Carla Duarte is leaving, and we have posted her replacement. So I could clarify that. There were no increases in staff in this budget. All of the increases going towards capital. And I did do an analysis on payroll, explaining the increase in the FTEs. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't go into detail, but it is available. We could.
Okay.
I think the person that brought up the hiring freeze understood what you've just said. I think the way I heard the suggestion was, is this an opportunity to not replace Carla's position and take a relook at the staffing? That's what I heard anyway. I don't think that was the.
It actually wasn't that. There was a few comments made about it. So I just, if I misunderstood, I just wanted to clarify.
I think Mr. Berry that's putting his hand up, his thumb up in the screen did say that.
Are we being interactive or are we answering your questions?
I think we've been interactive, yes.
All right. Mr. Shore, I think you had your hand up.
I think Mr. Berry was just confirming what I said is what he had to say in his
I
speech.
take it back then. So so we talked about personnel. The data is out there for the last 10 years. What our costs were. Disclose that. There hasn't been a new hire in 4 years.
We have more, we've increased our bylaw enforcement officer costs
Okay.
at council's direction to have a greater presence in the village. We're actually probably down from previous.
Emergency,
Don't,
in the last 4 years, we've had the emergency coordinator.
Okay,
yeah, we didn't, that position wasn't rehired, but it was in a sense, hired an emergency program committee, emergency program coordinator who lives in the village on a contract basis. Pretty much the same money as what the previous person cost. So no appreciable increase in any event.
But that role was something we approved at this council. That was new.
Pardon?
That role was new to this council 2 years ago.
Yeah, but it had been talked about for quite some time since I started here. There was always the discussion as to allocating resources, and Councillor Bain could probably speak to this better than anyone. Allocating resources to getting our house in order with respect to emergency program. Things that had fallen by the wayside without having anyone around to do those things. So it was a case of finally getting around to doing that in 2019, I think it was. Yeah, I mean, the office can't operate without having a municipal coordinator in the position that Ms. Duarte is going to be vacating next month, and that's simply not possible.
thank you very much, CAO. Let's let the other councillors weigh in. And to my colleagues, I hate to put you on the spot, but Councillor Abbott and I've been doing most of the talking. Councillor Cunliffe, do you have any issues that you wish to address to the gallery on any of the points raised?
Well, I'll say that I supported the connector because I think it's a good idea. I believe in safe passage, and I was the person who pushed my stroller up and down the steep road to Kelvin Grove Beach for probably 4 years. From infancy until my child was able to walk on their own without whining. But that being said, I would put it to council to see if we wanted to do a have your say and gauge from the community truly what the notion of that is. I know I support it, but if it is not the majority, then so be it.
Might I suggest before we have your say, we were going to engage the community with what it actually was going to look like.
Yeah, that's next steps. Next steps, you gotta be able to see what it is in order to have an educated opinion about whether or not it's useful or not.
Is there another issue you'd care to address of any of the comments made by the gallery?
I'd just like to clarify with Pam that the staffing increase was due to previously it was a lower cost because we had more contractors as opposed to full-time staff. Has that been the significant increase over the last 10 years?
No, basically the biggest increase since in those 10 years, we've had an additional 2 public works employees. That was the biggest increase, and then the bylaw enforcement has gone up.
And that
so
was necessary.
An increase in FTEs and an increase in salaries.
But there were also times when the chair that I sit in was vacant.
I misspoke. Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. And you said, I was thinking throughout the 10 years. Yes, the base year was understated because of contractors and vacant. The CIO position was vacant for a big period of time. So that the base year was artificially low.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Pam.
But it's also true we did create on this council, was it a 0.75 FTE when we created Carla's position? We never had that position before.
We always had that position, just a different name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different name.
Shauna used to sit in the chair that Carla occupies.
Correct.
She moved to the front.
And there was an increase
There was an
in
increase.
a 0.6 of an FTE in the general admin, but not in that position. That position is always.
So we did increase the general admin by
Yes.
2/3 of a person.
Yeah, 0.6, that's correct.
And that was largely to support the building inspector, I believe.
It was just generally the increase in the admin as things get downloaded to us. And increasingly, there's more and more administrative tasks, freedom of information.
Thank you very much.
Quite a few things.
Councillor Cunliffe, are you good with responses?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barmier, this would be your opportunity to respond to any of the points that the gallery's made.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, holding the council to account on where we're spending money is an important step in what we do here. I don't think we've taken a project any further than we felt the community supported it. And I think our procurement policy is meant to foster competitive bids and get us the best price for our work. So I do think we're being responsible in that sense. And if the connector is a real thorn in the community side, then we'll have to revisit that when we put it out to the public with drawings. And that was meant to be the next step. That no one's railroading that project.
There you go. Councillor Barnier, do you have any other comments on the topics discussed, which in brief were the personnel size, increased hiring, the beach project, or sale of our assets being land?
No, I have no additional comments.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bain, same question for you. Do you have any comment on any of the issues raised by the gallery?
Yeah, I do. The one about the emergency planning coordinator, I have to admit, I advocated that for the last number of years because I see as the world's changing and everything, some emergencies and things are going to be more and more present and in our face. And we live in the woods, and forest fire has been a concern for many people here, and rightly so. We're unprepared terribly, or we were, for evacuation, we really needed a central person who's well fitted to manage emergency services overall to get us on track. I have to admit, we've been rather spoiled in the past because for many years we had Sally Pollock heading the ESS team and everything, and her enthusiasm has always been so infectious that she carried a lot of weight. But there's not too many Sally Pollocks around anymore, and we had to look elsewhere for somebody who has the gift of communicating the insights and the opportunities, or could recognize the opportunities to improve the safety in our community. It's sure, it costs money, but I think lives matter here. Some of the projects and things, when you sit in the seat in council, you can't be too arbitrary and say, no, I'm going to plant my feet and say no to this and no to that. Sometimes you got to give a little bit for other people's wishes and things. And, for example, the beach part, my preference would have been to have a barn raising to do the washrooms and stuff like that. But enough people got together and formed a beach park committee, and it just seemed like that was the way that people wanted to go with this. And so I consented to that and gave my vote for it because it just seemed like it was what the residents wanted. And I think there's a lot of decisions like this come up that you may have, each one of us around the council table may have an idea on how things would be, but we also have to be flexible and listen to others. And maybe we listen to some of the wrong ones. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that could be done, less expensive, I suppose. But at the same time, we don't want to have our infrastructure and stuff and our renovations or whatever you want to be looking at done in such a hokey manner that it's sort of slap shot or shoddy or something. It is nice to do things right and to get it, make this place nice. I mean, we're in competition with our views and everything. They're so stunning. You'd like to have a nice looking village as well, I suppose. But I understand the reticence towards spending so much money. I'm uncomfortable with 6.5%, but quite frankly, as I look at the budget, I think, well, where do you trim it? There's so much need in this community. I couldn't find a good place that I would recommend trimming, and I think our CFO does an excellent job in outlining and showing what the costs are and our responsibilities. So I don't see any recklessness here, but yeah, sure, we're still open to listen to people's opinions. So anyhow, I already spoke too much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bain. I'm going to make one comment before I go to Councillor Abbott to close, if that's fine with you, Councillor Abbott.
I'd like to make one last.
Well, if that's fine. We'll go to, I'd like Councillor Abbott to close. I think that there was a comment about volunteerism. I think the community may have forgotten that we, within the last year, and Councillor Barmayer and Councillor Cunliffe both co-chair an extremely robust climate action committee that's newly formed and fully volunteered, fully qualified folks that come forward. We also enjoyed our 50th birthday last year. Many events took place by a very skilled, diverse 50th anniversary committee that put forward many things. And from what this council has tried to do, it is now coming to fruition. We have what we believe is the right director in place for ESS and co-directors and more folks that are willing to take the positions than ever before. So to say volunteerism is waning or not existent, I also go on to the bear friendly committees that Councillor Abbott's brought forth, the bird friendly committees. There is a lot of stuff that has gone here. To say that volunteerism is dead in this community is simply untrue. Councillor Cunliffe?
I wanted to comment on volunteerism as well, because there is, like you said, been a huge uprising in volunteers for certain committees. Others, like the events committee, unfortunately, is in dire need of recruitment. And to Ms. Jeffrey's point, I do believe that we have a lot of human capital in the village that we should look at taking advantage of, if at all possible. So whenever that would be possible, I think, bring it to staff and see exactly where the parameters are. But thank you to all of our volunteers, and please come out next Thursday evening to the beach park for an event honoring you. And I will leave it to Neville.
There you go. Councillor Abbott, if you could close us, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you. So you're right, I did take notes of people speaking and only mentioned one of the subjects earlier. First of all, on the 6.5% tax increase, it's not going to be news to anyone in this chamber. It might be to people on staff that I did not approve of that. I voted against it, and I have done in the last few years. And for the sole reason that I believe some of the sentiment that people have mentioned tonight is fair. I do believe we do not take a hard enough look at the other side of the equation. I've said this before. I think with the suggestion of Mr. Berry's, I think it was, of taking this opportunity to have a freezing hire, I think that's something we should consider. I would like to suggest that we do. And I believe that we should challenge ourselves a little harder. I was uncomfortable with this project manager decision. I agreed to go ahead when we decided that the budget's going to come back first, and we agreed that it would only be for the engineering coordination function, which seems to be holding up the beach park getting started, and I think that's key. But I think anything further than that, we should challenge ourselves to do it within the staff we have, within the department. They have the skills, and we should be able to, and we should challenge ourselves much harder at actually achieving that. As to the particular projects, my opposition to the connector is known. I think we all want to see that beach park happen and happen fast. I do fear the lure of the grant, as I like to call it. We don't want to leave any money on the table and someone else is paying 2/3 of it. You want to grab most of it. I hope we do not do that, because we're still paying our third, was it 27%, Pam, I think. We still got to pay that money, so we should drive to get it down to the need to haves, not the nice to haves. And I think that needs a far more robust look. So those are my opinions on the matters that came up.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. And with that, I will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 6, review and approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. And it is that the minutes of April 5th be approved as circulated. I'll put that forward. Councillor Killen, please second. Thank you. Any changes, discussion, deletions, amendments? Councillor Payne, Councillor Barmeyer, any? None. Councillor Abbott?
Just give me 1 second. No, I don't have any deletions.
There you go. All in favor of the minutes as presented, confirm by saying yes, opposed no.
Yes.
Yes.
Carried, thank you. Business arising from the minutes, I have none. Any councillors, anything?
Go to like a gas station bathroom.
Councillors, you have something? No.
Yeah, the events committee, I think the statement in the meeting, membership, I think in the meeting it was discussed the events committee chair was resigned. I think that it's moved on past that, correct?
It's moved on.
Yeah. So it's safe to say that the events committee is pretty much needs to be reformed.
There may be some philanthropic event that may come forward, but that's up to them to do that.
Okay, and any of the current members agreeing to stay on as far as we know or not?
Not that I know of.
Okay, that was one arising. I think the rest of the stuff, yeah, I'm good with the rest of it. It's
Thank you.
going to come up or has been discussed.
Thank you. Councillors, last call on business arising, none? Good. Unfinished business, the 2 items. I believe the rail crossing is a work in progress. Nothing changed there. Mr. Jaffer? Nope, thanks. And I know Mr. Bain has responded, and I have responded as well. So those 2 are strikes, which brings us to staff reports, the EP listing. And the motion is that they be received for information purposes. Councillor Abbott, will you put that forward?
I will.
Councillor Barmer, will you second? Thank you. Any item somebody wants to pick out, please do so now.
Got a few, if no one else has any. Someone else wants to go first, I'm quite happy.
Let's go with you, and then Councillor Cunliffe, if you have any.
My first one that jumped out at me is the panic light for the office, $1,500. These emergency battery lights that go on when the power goes off, is that correct? Maybe Nye can explain that? Or does...
Yeah, this is, sorry, Councillor Abbott, this is this is not those battery lights. This is a panic alarm when the front counter person is feeling threatened, that they would hit the button and then staff would come and support them.
Oh, okay.
From a safety perspective, we've had several incidents where the front office staff have felt threatened. And when that's happening in the front office, you don't really notice it in the back. So that's basically what the alarm is. It's an all points to all staff that the front counter needs help.
Okay, thank you. TransLink remittance, Pam, I think this one's come up before, and I think we all agree we get a good deal from TransLink, but can you remind me, there's 2 items here for TransLink remittance, one of $3,000 and one later for $37,000. So that $40,000 we pay TransLink, is that quarterly, annually?
So what page is that?
Okay, so there's 2 items called TransLink tax remittance. One's on the top, the big numbers on the top of page 19, 27,863. And the other one is...
Oh, that was just the parking tax. That's how much parking tax we collected, $37,000. It's 24% tax on all the parking meters and our street parking. So we remit that annually. So it's nothing to do with the TransLink that we collect as part of the property taxes. That was pure taxation. So a quarter of all our parking fees go to TransLink, and I remit it once a year. So it was substantially higher this year because the parking meters were open all year and they were pretty much full all year.
And is that the same rate for every municipality?
Yeah, it's right across.
So it doesn't matter what level of service we get, we pay the same.
Yeah, basically 24% tax on the TransLink. And so you said there was a 3,000?
Yeah, the same line item higher up on the previous page, 2,975. That's DCC remittance, and it says TransLink afterwards. So it's not the same thing. Page 18, quarter of the way down, $2,975 DCC remittance, TransLink DCCs.
Yes, I think CAO might be able to speak to that with our DCC remittance. So basically we have to pay DCCs, not our building permits.
Yeah, it was a tax that was implemented by TransLink 2 years ago, I think. And it's a development cost charge. It's applicable to all new development. So I think in this case, it was applicable to the new lots that are being built on Kelvin Grove Way. It doesn't apply if it's just, take down an old house, put up a new house. But if you're increasing, if it's increase in density, then there's a DCC involved.
Okay. Then maybe the next one, Nye can help us with. We have one very large pump repair that's bordering on CapEx size, $16,000 pump electrical hatch maintenance. Can you illuminate us on that one, Nye?
What page is that?
That is on page 18, 2/3 of the way down, pickup pump and compressor services.
Yeah, so that's the replacement for the pumps at the Timbertop pump station. Essentially, the two pumps that we use when that station was designed, the pumps that were selected for mechanical or factory use. They're not selected for potable water use. So what's happening is the corrosion in the cast iron mains is actually wearing the motors out faster. So basically what happened is both motors failed.
Okay, so did this become an unforeseen CapEx replacement, or is this covered in your maintenance budget?
No, it's an unforeseen. I did mention Timbertop during our strategic planning session that the station's aged and is going to be needing full replacement shortly.
Did we budget for it in CapEx?
It was part
No.
of the maintenance, unfortunately, it's not capital.
Okay.
Because it was just a repair.
Okay, so it is maintenance.
Yeah, the Timbertop pump station wasn't included in the capital. It's in the long range plan, I believe.
For replacement, but this was just maintenance, so it was an
Yeah.
operating cost.
Yeah.
The log float boom maintenance. So we speculated this year about leaving the logs in, let winter do its worst, and we thought that would be a more economical thing than taking them out and put them in each year. And I see it ended up costing us $5,500. Do you think the experiment worked, or is it cheaper to actually take them in and out?
Well, taking them in and out costs close to 10,000. So 5,000, but we still have some broken booms and broken chains. So there's still some maintenance that the marina will be billing us for. So until we see those final invoices, I'm guessing it's going to be very close.
Okay, I'll look forward to that discussion and get the numbers. I think there's some benefit to taking them out as well. Loggers Lane tree removal by Silverback.
So that was the failed culvert, the culvert that collapsed this fall, and the trees that had fallen that had to be removed.
Okay, I thought that was done a while ago. Okay. Maybe slow and bitter. And then the last one, the other Silverback item for the fire smart. Was that 100% grant? Can you remember? 100%?
Yes. Yes, it was.
And we're done with that?
I believe the CAO has an item on the agenda to speak to a little later on.
Okay, I'll keep my thoughts till then. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bain and Councillor Barmere, any questions on the AP numbers or item you'd like to have an explanation on?
Yeah, I got
Okay.
a couple.
I'm good, thanks.
Councillor Bain?
Well, yeah, if you turn my memory on page 18 of 84, we've got Richard White Planning Advisory Services Housing Needs Study. I thought that was a fully funded study that was being done.
It was, we incur the costs and then we submit the grant and we get reimbursed. So we got 7,500, it was a $15,000 grant. We got 7,500 up front, and we've done the final claim at the end of the project, and we receive full payment now. But we do have to, for any grant, we pay the costs and then we're reimbursed.
Oh, okay, so we are going to be reimbursed.
Yeah, so it was 100% covered.
Okay, thanks. The other thing I was curious about, it's not to do with finances, but it shows up about the salt. There's a number of purchases through Lafarge and whatnot. And my question is more to the works manager. Are we using real salt or an ice melter?
We're actually using road salt, the same salt that's being used by other municipalities. We're not using a magnesium chloride or a liquid brine.
Oh, okay. The reason I was wondering is I'm just kind of concerned about animals if they start looking into that stuff, and I guess we have to just watch that. And I noticed we've got a concrete driveway to the edge of the asphalt, and right at the bottom there's a bit of spalling going on. So I was just wondering if this salt is hard on concrete.
Salt is corrosive. It does have an impact on infrastructure over time, but more so with metal than it does with concrete.
Oh, okay.
For example, Highways has a program where they wash their bridges with water after each winter to wash away any residual salts to help stop corrosion.
So is it a matter of cost then that we stick with the salt and not some of the less harmful de-icers?
Yeah, I don't know that there is a less harmful de-icer. Most municipalities have moved to mag chloride, which is a liquid de-icer. It costs a little more, it's a little more effective, but you have to have a mixing station. You have to have, all of the trucks have to be refitted with tanks and sprayers instead of salt spreaders.
Okay, good, thanks. That's all for me.
Thank you very much.
Now, from an environmental side, is the salt being a natural product, is it a better solution, or how rely on these other?
Both are natural products. Magnesium chloride is the other form. They're both naturally occurring, but concentrations of salt are a concern environmentally.
Okay. So there's no glycol or anything in these other products?
No, there isn't. What we're using is pure salt. Yeah, I mean, magnesium chloride, operationally, it's a challenge to install. And again, it would mean retrofitting all of our trucks. And for the amount of salt we use, it just doesn't seem like a worthwhile expenditure.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the impact on the bridges and stuff, but we don't have a lot of concrete anyway, so, okay.
Yeah, I mean, all of it is salt and it's all corrosive. Mag chloride is also a salt and it's also corrosive. So it all has an impact.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bain, you're done, I believe. Councillor Barmere, you didn't have any questions? Thank you. Councillor Kenloff?
I just have one about a very large refund for about $70,000 on page 19.
Page 19.
Albert's.
Oh, yes. That was a payment that was made to us in error for a tax deferral. It goes to the ministry and not us. So it was just,
Okay.
There was a recognition immediately that it was a mistake and we just refunded the money. It
Okay.
was done electronically. So yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much. My questions have been answered already. Councillors, any other questions? Otherwise, I'll call a motion. There being none, the motion is called. All this confirm, receive the information for receipt of the payable check, AP check listing for information purposes, confirmed by saying yes, opposed no.
Yes.
Yes.
Carried, thanks. Next, CAO, the fire smart grant extension.
So, yeah, we have, as part of the grant that we got from UBCM, there was an educational component within that, about $2,000. And so the plan had been to do that when we got the community wildfire protection plan and have a sort of a, hopefully it would be a time when we could have like a town hall or something. Anyway, it kind of dragged on. But we do finally have the CWPP back from the province. So I was going to suggest that we bring that, put it on the May 3rd agenda, but then basically have it, refer it to the Emergency Program Committee for discussion. And you'll see there's a Emergency Program Committee item shortly coming up. But the educational component was to be done with the consultant who did the community wildfire protection plan, and he was going to come and do that or do it online. And it's more of a focus. We can sort of go through what the recommendations were for the community wildfire protection plan, which the committee has already seen. But the primary focus of the educational event is to be the fire smart aspect, and how does the village, what steps can people take, and just a bunch of educational information about that, and tips and tricks and recommendations along those lines. And we can pick out those aspects of the CWPP that reference the fire smart aspect of things. So I wasn't able to connect or reconnect with the fellow to do the thing, but we had talked about May 12th. So I just wanted to give a heads up, sort of a save the date. I was hoping to actually set the date tonight, but perhaps we can just save the date for the moment, and with a view to having something like that happening, and it'd be online, and aim for the 12th, with the Emergency Program Committee being on the 10th.
Colleagues, any questions for the CAO?
This is just a discussion. There's no campaign. We're not going out.
Yeah, no, it's a presentation. There was so.
Yeah, because I confused that at one stage there was talk about having a campaign. We've got the chippers out, and
yeah,
that's not this.
I'm trying to angle, there might be a little bit of money left over. And so I'm in discussion with the UBCM person about whether we can spend, if there's $600 left over, can we rent a chipper?
Just want to make sure if we do start to promote stuff like that, we think of the timing, we think of the bird window.
Yeah.
Make sure we do the right time of the year.
Yeah.
And then get, okay.
Yeah. So the problem is that we've only got, a couple months left to get this finished. We've already had a couple of extensions on this, so we won't be able to extend it past August. So it depends on, so then the question becomes, are there things that can be done that can be done notwithstanding that it's nesting season? So people cleaning up, fallen branches around them in the forest areas around them or on their own property. Just about, whether or not
there's lots of environmental reasons not to do those things. There's the whole No Mow May campaign and all these reasons why leave stuff lying around, and make sure when we talk about this, we talk about it sort of from a more kind of holistic point of view. I've seen a few articles lately where people are contesting whether fire smart works, the wisdom of it, and its impact on climate change, and when we should really be cutting down the trees. So there's a bit of a broader discussion. I just hope we can get that into it as well. And
So-
we don't keep it too
Yeah.
narrowly focused on, especially having people clean up at the wrong time of the year.
Yeah, so I think probably that could be a good discussion at the emergency program committee meeting. And I think Phil is up for that discussion too, so.
Councillor
Okay.
Bain, Councillor Barmier, any questions on this topic for the CAO?
I'm good, thanks, Peter.
Councillor Bain, you're good? Councillor Cunliffe, you're good? Thank you very much, CAO. And why don't you, now that you're warmed up, give us the verbal update on VCTS and the CN herbicide spray program.
Yeah, okay, so I did get some updated information from our friends at the District of West Vancouver. Their staff managed to have a conversation with BC Timber Sales. So they confirmed the following. So there's no active cut blocks in the Metro Vancouver area and thus no plans to spray at any time within this area. So if we're anywhere within Metro Vancouver, there's no plans to spray at all. There's also no plans to spray in 2022 within the larger district area stretching from Hope to Squamish. The IPMP, Integrated, I think, Pest Management Program, does not necessarily indicate plans for increased amount of herbicide application. The previous IPMP for the district area was expiring this year and a new one had to be done and in place for the legislation, et cetera, et cetera. IPMP is distinct from a notice of intent to treat specific areas, which would be prepared as a subsequent step should any concrete plans to spray the cut block areas be developed. The notice of intent would be subject to an additional 90-day notice process, including First Nations engagement. And finally, the BCTS is aware of some of the information regarding the IPMP in the media and is planning to provide additional details and clarifying information in the coming days. And this email was a few days ago, and I did see something on the news the other day. I don't know if anybody else caught it, but was basically talking about what they do and where they do it and so forth, and the concerns around it. So.
And Metro is also all over this too. Okay.
So that's all I have for that. I don't know if there's anything else.
Split the questions. Why don't we split the questions and we'll do the CN secondarily, if that's fine?
Sure.
Colleagues, any questions? Councillor Abbott?
So through all of that, Peter, I think I read and see most of this. The first thing is is there a commitment that they would have to consult us if for some reason they did decide to do any management or spraying here? I get there's no cut blocks immediately in our area, but they can't keep confirming that they have to consult with First Nations first. But it never seems to be a commitment that they have to consult with the people that live in the area.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that doesn't come out in the same writing.
Yeah, no, there's all they mention is the 90-day notice process. So we'd all be notified, and who knows, maybe it's a publication in the Hope paper again. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely issues, I would suggest, having to do with the notice provisions in the forestry legislation generally. And I know that this has been brought up before, and recommendations have come from I believe from the Forest Council of BC, which is supposed to be sort of an oversight third-party body that provides recommendations on forestry practices. And this came up about 5 or 6 years ago, as I recall. And but I don't think anything has come of it. So yeah, I think that the notice provisions are somewhat lacking. And the fact of the matter is, it's a 5-year plan. So, we have to be vigilant every single year and look around to see where their proposed cutting is going to be. And I mean, generally speaking, it's just, once they've logged, then that's where they're spraying. So they're not generally spraying where they haven't logged, because the idea is to prevent other species from growing up in those areas when they've just logged and then replanted. They want their species to grow. So spraying in areas where they haven't logged is probably never going to happen, I would suggest. So in that sense, you know, maybe we are fortunate to that extent. But in the bigger picture and the environment generally, yeah, there's obviously shortcomings in the process that perhaps need to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think, yeah, you're right. The bigger picture and to the entire environment in general, whether we should, this practice makes any sense. It's something I think we should, you know, keep our ears open for and, you know, all be part of that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the things that, you know, just going through that plan, the things that, you know, sort of jumped out at me were the sections having to do with, there was section 3.1 on community watersheds, strategies to protect community watersheds. Didn't really seem that robust. And then the other aspect of that would be, you know, I would be concerned that the research or the science that, you know, these plans are supposedly based upon, you know, are they done by you know, third-party interests, scientists, that foresters that don't have a stake in things? So independent research and having reliable information upon which we can rely is probably another aspect of things that we should look further into on a long-term plan.
I think so.
Councillor Cunliffe, any questions on BC Tree Services?
No, but that is relief to hear.
I think got this in hand. Councillor Bain, Councillor Barmier, any comments, any questions for the CEO?
Councillor Cunliffe said it for me as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Councillor Barmier, you're good.
Yeah, I guess I would just assume there'd be some natural follow-up. I don't really want to just wait to see what comes out of this. So I'm not sure what the next steps are, Peter.
Would the next step be the minister's response to our pretty clearly worded letter?
Mm-hmm.
And with a little bit of luck, I will be seeing the minister next week.
Okay.
I'll go to this topic, then we'll go to the CN spring.
Okay. So with respect to the CN vegetation management program, which is posted on their website, just digging a little deeper into that, it became apparent that there's, you know, everybody's in the same boat in terms of the spraying that goes on from the vehicles that go down the tracks. They spray the ballast with herbicides, and that's their primary focus. And they do use glyphosate on that. And then in terms of the wider right of way, they don't apparently use glyphosate. I asked for clarification on that, but it doesn't appear so from the FAQs that are on their website. And in terms of that wider, the wider question as to how they manage their right of ways, and you know, vegetation cutting and tree cutting in particular, because we have had instances where, you know, trees have been cut, and then you asked the question at a council meeting just shortly ago, you know, was that on municipal land? And the answer was no, it was in the CN right away. So looking into the process that they follow for that, I did get a response back from CN in terms of new construction. They do have nesting surveys, and they have guidelines for nesting season, but when it's not a new construction project, if it's just sort of their vegetation management, you know, the vehicle's going to come out and manage, you know, overgrowth that's coming towards the track. then they simply send a consultant out ahead of time to do an advanced scouting. But I'm looking for further information on what that entails. So I'll have to follow up with that, and I haven't got an answer back on that yet. Just a reference to the FAQs so far. So I don't know what their protocols are for, if a resident were to call up and, for instance, and ask about cutting trees on their right of way, how that works. So I've asked those questions to find out.
Thank you. Before I go around, if it's fair, CAO, would it be okay with you that we add both the BCTS and the CN herbicide spray programs as ongoing follow-up items? There's a huge amount of interest by council, and even as we move forward on this, so it would be in the follow-up items in unfinished business as in item 8A. That'd be fine.
Yeah.
Municipal coordinator, can you add both of those on? The questions on the CN spraying, Councillor Barmer, then Councillor Bain, Councillor Abbott, Councillor Miller. Any questions?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Peter.
I got a thought, I can't pronounce the name of it. It's glyphosate or whatever. I wonder if CN would be amenable to put up warning signs on the railway tracks heading to the cliff jumping saying this chemical can cause hideous tumors and birth defects. Please stay out. Think about that would be helpful.
Or on their passenger trains for tickets too. There we go. Any other questions, Councillor Bain? No. Councillor Cunliffe? Councillor Abbott?
No, I guess CEO is going to follow up. But are they even open to any suggestions, Peter, that there's a different way to do the ballast spray, that we don't use glyphosate, that, I don't know.
Well, if you go through their FAQs, they talk about, have they looked into other means of managing vegetation, and they say they have. Weed cutting actually doesn't remove the roots and actually encourages more growth. They tried steam injection, that was investigated, but it doesn't kill the roots either. And they talk about the roots getting into the rail bed, causing unsafe operating conditions. So I think, as far as use of herbicides that are, they reference quite a few times that all pesticides used in Canada must be registered in accordance with Health Canada's Pest Management Regulatory Agency, which they say is one of the toughest regulatory requirements in the world.
Yet this stuff's still used in Canada and is banned virtually everywhere in the world.
I don't know.
I believe even Mexico banned it. We're the only place in North America. I'm told I don't have that reliably. That was something I read in an article. I just, feel that, it's a very short section of a rail track that goes through these cities, and you'd think they'd do something else. Do they do this through every other city? White Rock down the promenade and so on. Is it? No one does anything about it. No one says anything about it. I find that surprising that heavily populated areas wouldn't at least have some other method.
Yeah, I don't know. But it doesn't appear that we can request. Like I thought there might be a cost to requesting those, right? But
yeah, the mechanical means instead, or
no, we have to do it. Period. It's a safety issue for the railway, as far as they're concerned.
It's volunteers to go down and pull them all out, and they won't have to do it.
In terms of looking at a live face, the CN representative that I speak with, the CAO speaks with, I think he's hopeful of coming here in the next month or two. If the date works, we may be having him to council.
Okay,
I'll do that. And
keep it till then.
If he's unavailable for council, I'm sure that we'll be able to have some time with him one-on-one and go through these issues with him face-to-face.
I'll get myself better informed before that meeting.
If I could, your worship.
Yep.
We definitely do not want to advocate anybody going onto the railway tracks to pull weeds. That's a significant safety issue.
Point taken.
Point taken. Good. Thank you very much. Any other questions on this with CAO? Appear to be none. Thanks, Sen. Thank you very much, CAO. Next up is reports. Mayor, I have nothing. Councillors, do you have anything? I'm seeing no's. Committees, anything? No. Nope. Okay. Next item is the Emergency Program Committee. And I believe CAO, this is just a save the dates. Is that a yes?
Yeah, Phil Fulkerson still needed to just sort of nail down a few things before setting it for sure. But you'll see something coming around soon. So and it will likely be that date.
I would ask that it comes by calendar invite from the municipal coordinator.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Next is the committee of the whole meeting, the minutes from April the 7th, and I believe the request is that we receive them, correct? Can we do that
Just receive for information, yeah.
Receive for information. I'll put that forward. Councillor Cunliffe, can you second for me?
Second.
Any discussion, colleagues? On the minutes? Nope. Okay. I call a motion. All in favor of receiving the minutes, please confirm by saying yes. Opposed, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. And I think we'll leave that for now. Emergency services, which is on page 27, the dispatch reports here. I'll put forward that motion to receive it. Councillor Abbott, can you second for me?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions on this? We use our best to interpret what's happening. No questions? Call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. It is received. Opposed, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Carried. Thank you very much. And that takes resolutions. There are none, which brings us to the bylaws. This is item 11A. And the bylaw is that the 2022-2026 5-year financial plan bylaw number 617-2022 be read the third time. Councillor Barmare, will you put that forward?
Yeah.
Councillor Bain, will you second? Thank you. Second. Discussion. I'll start, and if we can go, if it's fine with everybody. I think we talked about this. We've had numerous sessions on this. I go with Councillor Abbott, Councillor Cunliffe, Councillor Barmare, Councillor Bain to close. On this, I will be voting yes in favor of this. I don't take the increase lightly, but the reality is that we've had numerous sessions on this. Costs have escalated due to inflation. Our union costs to many of our personnel have risen through that piece. And when you get emergency bridge repair stuff coming out of operating budgets at almost $150,000, it's not the perfect storm. Unfortunately, it's been pointed out by the residents. We have a small village tax base. 1 point equals $17,000. Thereabouts, not a lot of dough. So I believe in the system. I believe we're doing the right thing. I'm not proposing a personnel reduction. We don't. Next up, Councillor Abbott.
I voted no previously. I intend to change my mind. I do wonder about the suggestion earlier from Mr. Berry about that. You mentioned it about that staff freeze instead of rehiring for Carla, and I'd like to bring that up at a future meeting. I'll wait until then. It's not going to affect this. We're not going to be able to change this. So I said I voted no on this, and I couldn't bring it back anyway. I do have one question on the distribution portion of it, Pam. So it's a little news. I don't think we looked at this before. Can you remind me, and I know I've asked this in the previous year, what's this utilities again on page 36?
It is the TELUS office at the store.
Yeah.
It's minuscule. It's probably a stretch.
That would be
to say
the
it's
4th year in a row.
4th year in a row. I went, that's what it is.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I hesitated a moment before I answered. Yes, it's that they have some real estate in
Why don't we call it the store? I went up to ask.
See, this is actually mandated. I got in trouble one year. I left the numbers off and I got in trouble for the bylaw. There, it's a very restrictive in how we do this bylaw.
And where is this?
It's between the mailroom, there's that little room and it's a TELUS room and they rent from the strata.
Okay.
There you go. Any more, another point, Councillor Abbott, are we ready to go?
Yeah, and just above that, Pam, there's a bullet that says the municipality will review and compare distribution of property taxes to other municipalities with similar property class compositions.
Yes, we basically review the split in terms of like very, very common to make recreation equal to residential and maximize the utilities, and business is generally higher than residential. So we do sort of a comparison that way. It's just for the split in terms of how we split the rates.
Okay, so that's that.
Is the maximum.
Oh, sorry?
So you can see it more on the tax rate bylaw and how we do the mill rate. So we maximize utilities at 40.
Okay.
And we generally make
I was more looking at the compared to other municipalities. So I wonder, was there some sort of comparison that we got that compared how we did it to other municipalities?
No, we generally just look to see what the trend is in terms of keeping residential equal to recreation and maximizing utilities. There's not a lot of, we don't have a lot of mill rates. We only have the 4 categories. So we don't have a lot of choice in terms of what we charge.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Abbott, if I could remind you, part of the duties for the municipal coordinator who's been, it's suggested their position be frozen or negated, that the municipal coordinator processes over 1,200 parking tickets between May and September. And to have that position not filled, you can imagine what catastrophe that would result in. So I think can I say just the number is the number for the personnel costs. I get it, but the disruption in our office, given what council knows is the disruption with the individual that handles those tickets alone, plus the other duties that she does, are very significant. So I can appreciate that if where an opening has come would be the logical thing to do it. It doesn't resonate with me who would be doing the replacement work, because sure as heck, I would not want the CAO to be doing it. Councillor Tough, you're next up.
I've got.
I think we're good. Thank you very much. Councillor Burner and then Councillor Bain.
Yeah, Pam, I just have 2 questions. The first one is the parcel taxes. So the second line from the top down of the budget. Can you just remind us where that came from?
Yes, that is the Brunswick Beach parcel tax that we had to implement to fund the sewer treatment plant.
Okay, and the the third item, the infrastructure levy. Can you remind us again what that's for?
Yes, that's a levy. It's 10% of the taxation amount that goes into a separate infrastructure reserve.
Yeah, and so I just had 2 questions. Well, I guess they're kind of more one question. This infrastructure levy we introduced this council, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and the parcel tax unfortunately was thwarted on us because of previous, let's say, lack of putting money away to replace failing assets. Let's call it the Calvin Grove treatment plant.
Okay.
So what we're currently seeing is, 270, let's call it $300,000 of additional money on our budget every year, because this council has decided that saving for infrastructure is a good idea. And I think that's what separates this budget from previous councils, is that we're actually putting money away for infrastructure. And unfortunately, we've had to foot the bill for previously unpaid for, unsaved for maintenance work on the Calvin Grove treatment plant. So, that skews the budget, but these are all infrastructure costs that we're bearing, and we're trying to be forward looking and putting some money away. So that's part of the story here. So when we talk about absolute numbers, Mayor Broughton brought up 1.9 million as an absolute figure. We've got to peel 15% out of that budget because we're actually looking to pay for infrastructure with that money, which is different from previous budgets, previous councils.
Could you confirm that, CFO?
yes, this budgets are geared towards putting money aside and just the increased repairs, because as our assets age, and as I mentioned a couple of times during the budget process, we are doing the third phase of, it's grant funded, our asset management plan, which we presented in the fall. And I would encourage all residents to come and listen to that presentation, because like all municipalities, we have a huge shortfall in our ability to fund the future replacement of assets. And as I said earlier, all of this tax increase is going to infrastructure.
Do you mind making comment on our ability to win any grants without doing something like the infrastructure levy or putting money aside?
Yeah, we've discussed that as well, that a current grant application for infrastructure, there's 12 questions on asset management, more questions than any other section. And we are required to have an infrastructure master plan and show evidence that we're putting money aside for future replacement of assets in order to even qualify for the grant now. And we also have to face the task that in future we will have to start budgeting for depreciation, which we currently don't do.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barmer, any other questions?
No, thanks, Pam.
Good. Councillor Bain, any questions?
Just a comment. I think Councillor Barmeyer pretty well hit the nail on the head. Is what which catches me on this is that it has to do with the infrastructure, and I think so much of what we take for granted is actually deteriorating. You know, it's like when you have a car, when it gets about 10 or 15 years old, you question whether it's worth putting the money into it or else replacing it. Well, our amortization or lack of it is putting us in a theoretical deficit, because the stuff is going to wear out and somebody in the future is going to be nailed with a horrific bill if we don't put something away now. My preference would be to fully amortize everything, but we don't have the population base to fund that. So this is a bit of a compromise. We do what we can, but we can't fix the problem because we're so small. We have to rely on grant funding to keep our water system and our roads and sewers and ditches and all kinds of stuff running. So I can't see, like I said before, you know, the numbers are the numbers, and I don't like it, but I don't see any other way out that we can keep the village afloat unless we fund it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bain. Are you concluded, sir?
Yep.
Councillor Abbott, why don't we give you the last word before I call a motion?
Can I just comment on what Norman Fred said? So just be clear, the 6.5% increase is for operating costs. It's not confusion with what we put aside in the infrastructure levy, which is the additional 10%, which is, in my opinion, may even be less than what we should be. Certainly not going to keep up the amortization, but it's the operating costs that have gone up by 6.5%.
That's not correct. The
could you speak up?
The tax increase is for capital and operating, and the increase we have of 6.5 actually doesn't even, and they are operating, but these emergency bridge repairs we have of $150,000, the tax increase doesn't even cover that. So we've done actually very well with this budget, considering the costs that we had to take on, and the increase is only 6.5. Because 6.5% doesn't raise enough even to cover the bridge repairs. So not technically capital, but it is operating. And there's other aspects of capital that are being funded by this budget. An increase in the property taxes does not just go to operating, it goes to everything.
Thank you very much, CFO. Last call, colleagues, before I call a motion, which I will. All those in favor of the resolution for the bylaw before us, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes.
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 Councillor Abbott? No. Opposed? Thank you very much. Recorded? Yes, thank you. Next up is the tax rate bylaw, and the bylaw is that the tax rates bylaw 618/2022 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time. I'll put forward that motion. Councillor Bain, can you second me? Thank you. CFO, any discussion? This is kind of perfunctory to what we just decided on.
Yes, this falls from the budget, and these are setting the mill rates so that we can do our property taxation, and it has to be have the readings after the budget. So that's why it always follows the budget.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. I will call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes.
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 It's yes all around. Thank you. Item C, which is the election and assent voting bylaw. And that is bylaw number 6/20/2022 be introduced and read a first and second time. Councillor Abbott, could you put that forward? Councillor Kellogg, a second. Thank you very much. Staff, can you give us a quick skinny?
So the election and assent voting bylaw before you is essentially a redo of the previous election bylaw because the provincial legislation changed specifically around mail ballot voting. So instead of having to have some kind of disability or not being in the village, now anyone can vote by mail ballot voting. So this bylaw reflects that and essentially clarifies some of the processes around that, and as well as some other minor changes. But there were too many changes to make an amendment to the previous bylaw, so this is just a much cleaner way of doing it. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And this covers potential electronic voting in the future.
Yeah, there were some administrative procedures that didn't need to be in there because it could change over time. Those are not normally included in bylaws, so we just took them out. And it follows best practices according to the legislation and the LGMA.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any question for staff?
I had one on top of page 7, section 8. It talks about as soon as possible after sequencing envelopes in place in the ballot box, whether you're going to open them, open the sequencing envelopes, and then it says counting of the ballots will happen as soon as possible. But I think, and then it says in accordance with the Local Government Act. So I guess it's not suggesting that the mail-in votes or the early votes, for that matter, would be counted prior to the other votes, because the Local Government Act says you have to wait till the election's over, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, it's just, okay. Because it doesn't actually say that, but you'd have to go read the Government Act to confirm that. Because at first I thought it seemed really odd that this stuff would be counted earlier, but it won't be.
No. Sorry, section 8.
Well, let me just, yeah, section 8. Section 2 has to say. Yeah. So section 8 says, as soon as possible, after all sequencing envelopes have been placed in the ballot box, and then it goes on to say you do the following. Open the ballot box, open the sequencing envelopes, and then it says counting the ballots. So I thought, well, this is all happening before the election. Then it says in accordance with the Local Government Act. So the Local Government Act will override and say you can't count the ballots until after you've closed the election.
That's right.
Right, yeah. So if you didn't know that, it would read like these are getting counted early. But it's not the case,
Yeah.
right?
But I would hope that the chief election officer would know that. Know the legislation.
Okay. That was just, I thought that jumped out at me when I first read it. Then there was one other one. So on the section on advertising, signs, etc. 100 meters. Yeah, this 100 meters from the building structure. We know when we have our election, people will put their signs at Cross Creek on the fence. That is acceptable, right? Was that within the 100 meters?
It's 100 meters as the crow flies.
Okay. So we can tie signs, people can tie signs on the Cross Creek fence, like they always do.
I can remember going out in the morning of, well, at least one of the by-elections we've had and pacing it off as best I could and removing or moving
I had my sons take away my first term.
We'll take it away for that? Yeah. Okay. Then item C, this is what confuses me. So it gives you all these rules about signs, you can't have illuminated flashing, all the rest of it. Then item C says sections 15A and B do not apply to the village.
Yeah, I think it just
50.
means, because the village wouldn't be posting signage about elections, it would just be
Oh,
signage.
Directing
about-
people where to vote.
Yeah,
Uh,
where to vote.
oh, so it's, those sections do not apply to signs posted by the village.
Yeah, it actually confused me too.
Because it says do not apply to the village. I thought, oh, none of that applies to us. We can do anything we like.
But then
Right.
the village is defined in the definitions, and so that's why I wouldn't try to
Gotcha.
change it.
Okay, so what was in the fine print? All right. Yeah, those are my questions.
Any other questions for staff on this? None, call the motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Opposed, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Carried, thank you very much. Next is the list of correspondence. Councillor Bain, a little drum roll. This is your last section for the quarter before it goes to, who is it? Councillor Barmeyer will be doing it for the next quarter. No, he looks forward to it. Councillor Bain, let's go out with panache.
Sure. First one, G1 is from our MP Weiler for Connecting Families Initiative. It's offering $20 a month high-speed internet services. Government of Canada will connect hundreds of thousands of low-income families and seniors to affordable high-speed internet. I didn't realize I'm a low-income person. I pay $22 for my internet. Sorry, I feel quite good.
And you're lucky you've got it, isn't he, Councillor Cunliffe?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, the next one is regarding World Ocean Day, June 8th. Motion for Ocean Protection. Kind of has a catchy name there. And they're asking our support in that. It says, well, I don't know, it said it's a motion. I was looking for a motion. They want us to voice I don't know. Anyhow, it's a big deal on June 8th. We can move on with that one. City of G3.
Are we going to do that? Are you suggesting?
Leave it up to everybody. I'm not imposing my will on it.
It's a request from Nature Canada. Is it not?
Yeah, we could take a look at this in the Climate Action Committee.
Okay, sure. That'd be a good place.
That's a good place, yeah. Good.
Thank you,
Okay.
councillors.
We've got whoops, down to G3 from City of Fort St. John. They're writing the Minister Whiteside for extended hour childcare for shift workers. I don't know what I think about that, but anyhow, it's up there. They've got a number of details. I guess I sort of side with the little kids. I think the parents should come home sooner or later, but that's just my flippant remark. I said anybody has some background or insight into that. G4 Operation Smile, invitation to proclaim June 19th, 2022 as the longest day of smiles. They've got they're dealing with people with cleft palates in 4 places, and it's kind of moving with what they do. There are a good number of organizations that do this this service. I don't know if we should recommend any one, but my opinion is I think the best thing we could do is encourage people to support charities that help the people who can't help themselves. And there's this one, there's Cure International that does pediatric orthopedic surgery, and I mean they're all over the place, and I just think the good thing to do would be to turn our hearts and minds towards the needs of others, and I'll leave it at that. Next one, G5, District of Sycamoose. They're protesting the luxury tax on recreational boats, and a recreational boat of over $250,000. The government is talking about charging 10% on the purchase of it. And I don't know, being a boater myself, I don't have a boat that expensive, but I don't believe in punishing people for their prosperity and their success in business. And I don't know. I don't like sort of Robin Hood proposals, if you can call it like that. So that's my opinion. Any of you are welcome to refute it if you like. G6 from District of Sycamoose, Invasive Mussel Defense Program. Yeah, they were talking about lakes and everything of power boaters going on with their boats from trailers from one location to another and bringing mussels and stuff in that don't belong in our waters. But my mind goes a little bit farther than that, and I think of the freighters that come in that have ballast taken on when they've gone from one place, dropped off a load, and then they come up to our area and they dump the ballast, and who knows what's in the water from a different locale. So I get the point. I'm kind of concerned about the bigger issue with freighters, though. And finally, we've got G7. That's on page 81. I can just jump ahead there. Oops, my mouse has gone crazy. Anyhow, it's the Moose Hide campaign, invitation to learn about the Moose Hide campaign. It's a really an odd name, but the crux of the whole thing is they're saying they're reaching out to invite us to learn more about the Moose Hide campaign. And it says the Moose Hide campaign began as an Indigenous-led British Columbia-born reconciliation movement that calls upon all Canadians to stand together to end violence against women and children. I think it's a very timely thing. I think violence against anybody is reprehensible, and I think we should stamp it out, and this is a good start. So there's some attached correspondence that has how to get involved, and anyone interested, I encourage you to look at our agenda package, and you'll find it on page 81 to 84, I think it is. Yeah, 84. And that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your service over the last quarter, Councillor Bain. And that concludes correspondence. There was no present correspondence this time out. Brings us to item 13, new business. There is none. Brings us to item 14, public questions and comments. There's still some folks in the gallery. If you would like to participate, we have some time for that. Again, you don't have to show your turn your camera on. If you wish to unmute and raise your hand and come forward, you'd be greatly appreciated, and we'll go through it. Mr. Sretsky?
Yes, you underline in discussion amongst the councillors that there was no new hiring for the decade. It's all fantastic. So how do we explain that rise of expense of employees from 700,018 to 1.9 million in 10 years? How is this possible? We've hired nobody, so who are we paying this extra money? Would somebody kindly explain that?
It has been explained, and I'll ask the CFO to correspond with you. We've done a significant workout for the last 10 years, broken it down by department, by personnel, by FTEs, and year by year, so you'll see it, and also why some, I mean, I'm just in advance of what CFO Rook writes. Some of it's because of contract people that weren't full-time staff. Others, there was absences for a year. So she'll give you the fulsome discussion on that, Mr. Sretsky, along with the spreadsheet.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else, please come forward.
Sorry, can I just comment on that? that spreadsheet doesn't show that there has been no increase in staff for 10 years. That's not a pamphlet in that spreadsheet.
No,
The explanation of what's happened is in the spreadsheet, but I don't think anyone can say we have not increased staff in 10 years. That's not accurate.
I think there was an earlier comment that we hadn't had increase in the last 3 years. I think maybe that was the misunderstanding. Anyway, I'll send the detailed analysis to you, Mr. Sredsky.
Okay, so thank you very much. Mayor Broughton, you've come forward and we can hear you. You're good.
Thank you, Mayor McLaughlin and council.
Just a second. We may have a problem at our end. Just a second, Mayor Broughton.
Oh,
Are we okay? I think you're, try it again. Unmute. Mayor Broughton, unmute.
thank you.
There
Thank
we
you.
go.
My apologies. No, Mike had come into the living room from our den with his computer. Anyway, it's off. So listen, I appreciate the struggle of budget, but I need to be very clear. This is irresponsible. 6.5% is not sustainable. 3.5% wasn't sustainable. When I just briefly list and I won't list them right now, but each of you has a responsibility to look through that budget. You have a fiduciary responsibility to the people of Lions Bay. And I'm challenging you that you are not meeting that fiduciary responsibility in looking at, I sent you that, this is a small example, the federal legislation wording that allows municipalities to decide on their stop signs. We don't need a report. To go ahead with engineering when the community doesn't even know about the project, hasn't had an opportunity for community input. These kinds of decisions that you're making aren't little and they're not normal. They're being made by you, and you're not meeting your fiduciary responsibility in saying yes to a 6.5% increase. We had an emergency committee totally separate from ESS, if I can just correct Councillor Bain, because he sat on that emergency committee. And we hired a person to look at our plan. Our plan was excellent. Of course, it always has to be updated. But these kinds of spending creep make a difference. And if you sat down and looked at the spending creep that's happened in this budget, you would understand that it is not necessary to have made the decision that 4 of you made this evening. And I thank Councillor Abbott for standing his ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Broughton. Anybody else? Would you please unmute and come forward? Mr. Berry, if you could unmute.
Yes, I'd asked a question earlier. There seems to be a duplication of duties with this new hiring, and I know you pointed out, Mayor McLaughlin, that the tickets were the utmost importance. So why not hire a bookkeeper to document those tickets and let the CAO manage those duties that the new hiree is looking, or that you're looking to put back to this new hiree. I looked at those duties. They look to me as though a lot of those could be handled by our CAO. And then the next question, which I asked previously and didn't get an answer for it, was we've got some real difficulties and problems here. And why is the CAO not in the office in Lions Bay on a daily basis working with the team? I understand he's living and working out of Whistler. And to me, when a business is struggling, that requires that the chief gets in the office, works with the team, and resolves matters. So could you please answer why the CAO is not in the office? Or am I incorrect on that?
I'm in the office at least twice a week, Mr. Berry, and the other days I'm not standing idly by. We can all work in different ways these days. Online, the ability to work online and to have meetings with staff online is not what it used to be. So it's all kinds of different ways that people can get the job done. It enables me to spend more time doing work as opposed to spending time on the highway. So there's advantages there as well. So, you know, I'll have you know that there's no duplication between my duties and that of the municipal coordinator, who does a lot more than parking tickets, does minutes, does the agendas, does a lot of different things. My role is not the same at all. And so there isn't the duplication that you see, and the municipality needs to have somebody in that role. And I look forward to finding a person with qualifications that Ms. Duarte had, and we're sorry to see her go. She'll be sorely missed, but we definitely need to fill her position.
Well, I think working remotely for some people and perhaps employees at a lower level can be done. However, I think when the chief person responsible is working remotely, the relationships suffer, and that's just my experience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Berry. Somebody else would like to come forward? Got a couple more minutes. I don't see anybody else. Last chance. Thank you very much for all of the gallery members for attending tonight. Last call again. None. Right, we'll say good night to you. And we've already reported out. I'll put forward the motion to adjourn the meeting. Councillor Abbott, second.
Second.
There you go. All in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Opposed, no. Carried. Thank you, and good night, everybody.